The galaxy had always known humanity as fierce combatants, survivors honed on a world that tested their limits daily. Earth, that fabled death world, had forged warriors who were resilient, inventive, and unyielding in the face of impossible odds. But what most species in the Galactic Union failed to grasp was that humans didn't just thrive in war. They adapted and evolved when peace settled over them. And that made them more dangerous than ever. When the war ended, the great fleets were disbanded, and the soldiers who had stood shoulder to shoulder in the void were sent home. Many species looked forward to returning to traditions of art, relaxation, and quiet pursuits. For human veterans, however, retirement meant something different. It meant time to think, to dream, to create. Commander Elias Trent, once a decorated officer in the Orion conflict, now lived in a modest home on a moon colony known for its peaceful lakes and forests. To the neighbors, he was a quiet, unassuming figure with a twinkle of mischief in his eyes. He could often be found tinkering in his workshop, a space cluttered with metal parts, glowing components, and half-finished devices. What they didn't know was that these projects weren't just hobbies. They were innovations sparked by years spent in the crucible of combat, driven by the endless what-ifs that haunted veterans who survived the front lines. One day, Elias received a visit from an old friend, Captain Mira Grant, who had fought by his side during the siege of Idris Prime. She wore civilian clothes, but her bearing and sharp eyes spoke of her military past. "Elias, what have you been up to?" she asked with a wry smile, glancing around at the organized chaos of his workshop. Elias laughed, a warm, rough sound. "Keeping busy. Peace may be here, but my mind's still restless." Mira nodded knowingly. "I think that's true for all of us. I heard about the group on Lyris 3, the ones who developed a handheld EMP disruptor that works without setting off standard field detectors. The council is still scratching their heads over it." Elias's grin widened. "Yeah, heard about them. It's what happens when you give a soldier time to think without someone shooting at them." He picked up a small cylindrical device from his workbench, twisting it in his fingers. It emitted a low hum, and for a moment, the entire room shimmered with a faint distortion before falling still again. Mira raised an eyebrow. "A personal stealth generator? In your workshop," she said, incredulous. "Refine the tech from field emitters we use during recon missions," Elias said, his eyes lighting up. "But this one's compact, lasts longer, and recharges using ambient light. Just a little project to keep my hands busy." Mira shook her head, equal parts impressed and wary. "You know, it's no wonder the council is nervous about us. They see veterans like us as a powder keg waiting to ignite." "Let them be nervous," Elias said, setting the generator down. His voice lowered, thoughtful. "Peace made us reflective. It made us question what could have been done better, what tools might have saved more lives. And so we create. It's not about preparing for war. It's about being ready for whatever comes next." The truth was, retired human warriors were now a silent force, more inventive and unpredictable than during their years of service. Stories spread of veterans like Elias and Mira, who, in their downtime, developed gadgets that bypassed modern security, armor that could adapt on the fly, and strategies that turned defensive measures into aggressive advantages. The galaxy watched with wary eyes, realizing that while war had been the crucible, peace had given humanity the time to become even more formidable. There was no grand conspiracy, no secret organization. There were just individuals with experience and time on their hands, solving problems they once faced and anticipating ones they hadn't yet seen. And that, more than anything, made human veterans the quiet force everyone feared, not for what they might do, but for what they could do if needed. Myra's voice broke through Elias's thoughts. "So, what's next on the docket?" Elias looked at her, his smile turning serious. "Something that could shield whole cities, should we ever need it. After all, peace isn't permanent, but preparation can be." Mira nodded, a glint of determination in her eyes. It was in the quiet, in the space between conflicts, that humanity became more than just warriors. They became guardians, innovators, and, if necessary, the architects of tomorrow's defense. The following months were filled with whispers. Other veterans across the galaxy were heard to be inventing their own devices, from compact energy shields capable of absorbing tremendous impacts to drones designed to scout, repair, or even defend entire perimeters autonomously. The Galactic Union, while grateful for the peace that reigned, began to realize that in the hands of human veterans, peace itself was not idle. It was a breeding ground for creativity shaped by survival and tempered with foresight. Reports emerged from border colonies where these human innovations had quietly begun to circulate. A small settlement fended off raiders using an improvised field device that turned kinetic energy into bursts of electric current. A retired pilot adapted an old flight suit into a personal exoskeleton that could move heavy machinery and even resist corrosive environments. It wasn't just talk anymore. It was a movement born from the minds of those who had seen too much to be complacent. Elias, Mira, and others like them found themselves at the center of quiet conversations among council leaders. There were meetings filled with both admiration and unease, debates on whether such creations were a blessing or a harbinger of unrest. But no matter the angle, one fact stood firm: retired human warriors were more formidable than ever. They had taken the tools of war and peace, blended them, and created something entirely new. One night, Elias stood on the balcony of his modest home on the moon colony, looking out at the stars. He knew that somewhere out there, old allies and adversaries alike were watching. Some with respect, others with apprehension. The peace they had fought for had given him time, and that time had fueled ideas that would keep them ready for whatever lay beyond the horizon. The galaxy now understood. When the guns went silent and the battlefields emptied, humanity didn't stop fighting. They simply turned their battle-hardened minds toward new, unseen challenges, ensuring that when the time came, they would be ready. And this time, they wouldn't just survive, they would thrive, wielding creativity as their sharpest weapon.